So, Randy back at you. I'm going to do a little video on ring and pinion lockers, if you will, for XCX 10.2. I ran into a little problem with the stock configuration. I don't know if you can see the gear ratio on that or not. It's a 30x8. The normal setup is like such, with 3 little screws back there. And when you're putting all the horse torques involved with turning this thing around, and your wheels are jammed up in the rocks, those little screws can shear, and then you have no motive force driving your rear end anymore. Kinda not the best design. Modern versions, of course, this is all one piece. Handy, but a little more difficult to change gear ratios without buying all of it. I found OTTSIX, very known company out there, does a lot of stuff for off-road rigs. I went to a 833 in the rear, give me some underdrive. The beauty of this, I don't know if you can see that very well, that socket is triangulated to match up with the locker portion. So now you got all that material in that socket doing the holding of that rotational force, and the screws are just there to keep the two pieces together. Now, I've had this all put together once, but then I thought, it'd make a nice little video, so we're going to put it back together. These screws do have blue thread locker on them. Should never have to revisit tightening them again. I put it in initially, give it a little test, everything worked. The package does come with shims, so you can set your mesh. Turns out my setup didn't need the shims. If I put a shim in there, it got tight and grindy. So no shims. It runs as smooth as the factory setup. No issues. And it did give some underdrive. Because I like this one so much, I'm going to order the front ring and pinion locker setup for mine, and I'll probably overdrive it so that I have overdrive in the front, underdrive in the rear. Should give it a little bit more dig over the plain gear-to-gear setup. That's no difference between the driving of the front and rears. Overdrive in some form, whether you're doing it from the rear end or the front end or both, allows the front end to pull more than the rear. And in doing that, you get a couple of nice benefits. Tend to not have, if you're on a vertical climb and your front and rear ring and pinions are equal, the rear tends to want to squat down and lift the front end. If you're overdriving, the front is constantly, just slightly, pulling away from the rear, not allowing the rear to really squat itself and lift that front end off the ground. Whoop, wrong bit. That's one benefit. The other benefit is tighter turning radius. It's almost like you've got drag brake dig, if you will. So you can get her to pivot a little bit better. Now, I've run dig on rigs in the past, and you know, it works. It has its benefits, but for what I do with these, I'm not a huge fan. I actually ran my dig for a while on another rig. Ended up pulling it back off and gave it to a friend of mine to put on his. Now, I've loved this tool, and it's very handy for taking stuff apart. Be careful with them when you're putting stuff back together. You don't have the feel and the sensitivity that you have with the standard driver, and these things have a lot of torque. If you're not wanting to strip stuff out, I always like to finish mine up old school so that I know I'm not blowing stuff apart. I use these in my day job a lot. Very handy for disassembly. Not a huge fan of going full assembly, hitting it to the ratchets and putting ugga-duggas on anything if it's not designed for it. This ain't designed for ugga-duggas, if you know what I mean by an ugga-dugga. Too much torque. Strip out stuff. No bueno. The here's pretty smooth. I'm not going to complain about that. These big brass inserts back into play. This particular rig, I bought it this way. I already had all this brass on it. I got a smoking deal on it. Wasn't going to complain. Try it out. It's got brass front and rear. Does okay. It's heavy. It makes the rig heavy for sure. But not going to complain about its handling. Just its weight. If I ever go to, been thinking about taking this rig and maybe not even necessarily start from scratch, do a G-speed belly crawler setup, cheater rig. Oh, I got that stuck on there. Okay. What in the world? Extremely odd. Never had that happen before. Anyway, we'll build a cheater rig. But not with the portals. Everybody loves portals. Don't know if I'm sold on portals yet. I'm running them currently on my relatively stock axial baby Capra UTB18. Of course, it comes with the portals. Sure, gives you the ground clearance. It also forces weight up high, which seems to be the bane of that thing's existence. When it decides to flop or turtle, it's like throwing a switch. There's almost no warning. Not a lot of aftermarket yet, but it's coming. I mean, I know I talked about it in the previous video, but I think I picked up the Injora front brass portal covers that are a little more weighted. But there's a lot of stuff coming, but it's not there yet. You're definitely going to find a lot of it in the stores right now. It's the nature of the beast when anything's new. TRX 4M's having the same issue. There's just not a lot of aftermarket coming out yet. Quite the opposite. The SCX 10.2, STX 10.3s, the TRX 4s, all the 10 scale stuff. There's, you know, they've been around a little bit. There's all kinds of aftermarket for them. Vanquish, all those guys. Lots of aftermarket. Just depends on which direction you want to go. Do you want to go full scale? Do you want to go belly crawler? Do you want to do just a trail truck? This one is definitely a trail truck that I currently have. Nothing special. Put a Jeep body on it because I like Jeeps. Put these SSD wheels on some J Concepts landmines. Super grippy tire. Conformed nicely, but I also cut one already. Now, that cut happened the same time I blew this rear end up. I had that tire bound up pretty hard in a gap, and I was testing the Hobbywing Fusion Pro FOC motor, which I had mounted in my rig here. It's a pretty nice setup. It's very convenient to not have an ESC in there. It's got lots of programmability. I like it. I wish they'd make one for the 18th scale baby cap ride. Put it in that. But that's about it for now. I got this put back together. I should put my pins and my hexes in before I lose those bad boys. The smoothness and the drivability of that Fusion Pro blew my mind compared to other systems I've run. When it comes to crawlers, I've always been partial to brushed motors. However, I have run some brushless, and they're nice. With that Fusion Pro, the drivability of it blew my mind, and that's my new favorite setup for crawlers, at least. Okay, that's a lockdown. I know they've got a cheaper version of it now out there. They're calling the Fusion SE, I think. Comes in two different versions. One's a... oh golly, don't quote me on this. I know one of them's like an 1800 and the other might be like a 1200 kW. And it has a few less programming features, but not a lot. If they'd have had that out when I bought my Fusion Pro, I would have probably got that, because I'm seeing those for sale for, was it $79? That's half the price of the Pro. So they are different shape, so there's a little bit of mod that needs to be done inside. As far as if you're running the stock battery position on an SCX 10.2 like I was on mine, I have to trim the corner of it a little. Not a big deal. Okay, so back together with the OTTSIX locker. This one's destined for the scrap pile. That was just a bad design. don't know why they did it that way. You know, maybe it's just because it's easier to manufacture these two pieces, but to put all of the torque on those little screws, which are literally that big, I'm surprised they held up. I'm surprised this one held up as long as it did. I drove it when I owned it hard, and I know somebody owned it before me, so yeah, this one will go bye-bye. Don't need it. Don't like it. Never do that again. Okay. That's all I got. If you guys enjoy the content, please subscribe. I'll do more. Drop us a like. That's always handy. And comments. What you like, what you don't like. Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm working on something else, too. These were given to me. Little, cheap, stamped, steel, heavy steel insert. Gives it a little bit of weight. Beadlock. Aluminum hub. And I've been seriously contemplating going to a 1.9 wheel on the Baby Capra. But I want to do it with a Class 0 tire that keeps the overall diameter low. Proline has, it's a BFG crawler, a licensed tire. Class 0, I think it's 3.85 inches, and the stock ones are 3.5, so not that much bigger. On a 1.9 wheel. And these were given to me, and I kind of looked at them, and I just don't like the look of, you know, white wagon wheels. Then I got to thinking, something the Capra can use is a wider track. In other words, the tire is out wider. What if you took and turned the hub to the other side? Now you have a deep dish wheel. Yes, the center of the hub does creep out this way, but I did some measuring, and yes, it will give you pretty significant offset towards the outside to give that thing a wider track, but you're still dealing with a white stamped wheel. Yuck. Unless I sand them all off and paint them myself. And if I paint them two different colors, if you notice this back one, the triangle holes down in there are larger than the ones on the front. So if you did this piece in black, and you did this in silver or even gold, when you put it in there, it's going to give it that machined look. That's what I'm thinking anyway. I'm going to try it. When I get it all done, I'll let you guys know. Anyway, subscribe, like, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Should I go ahead and do that with those cheap wheels, or skip it and go spend a lot of money and buy something like that? Don't know. You tell me. We'll catch you on the next one.